Hey, I'm so glad you're here. Let's take a moment, shall we? Set aside everything else just for a little while. If you're curled up in bed or lounging comfortably, that's perfect. All you need to do is relax, breathe in, and breathe out. Tonight, we're diving into the strange, the unexplainable, and the eerie. Stories that linger, even when the lights are off. You might be wondering what you've signed up for, and I promise there's no rush. We're not chasing the kind of fear that makes you jump, but rather the kind that whispers, that tugs at the edges of your imagination. These are stories that don't have easy answers, stories that are still waiting to be solved. You'll hear about mysterious creatures, unexplained encounters, and strange events that still haunt the people who experience them. And as we go along, I want you to think of these tales like puzzle pieces. Some fit, some don't. But all of them will spark your curiosity in the gentlest way possible. So take your time. If you're here to drift off to sleep, let these mysteries float in and out of your mind. Let them be a quiet backdrop as you relax. You're safe here, and no matter how strange the world gets, it's all just part of tonight's story. The Suicide Forest. The Aokigahara Forest lies at the base of Mount Fuji in Japan, a dense and sprawling expanse of greenery that has long been the subject of myths and mysteries. Known as the Sea of Trees for its tightly packed vegetation, this forest is as beautiful as it is unnerving. Beneath the tranquil surface lies a darker reputation, one that has earned it the nickname the Suicide Forest. For centuries, Aokigahara has been steeped in folklore. In Japan's feudal era, some stories suggested the forest was used for yubasut, an ancient and grim practice where elderly or infirm individuals were left in remote locations to die. Though the historical accuracy of these tales is debated, their association with Aokigahara persists, cementing its eerie reputation. But it wasn't just ancient lore that painted the forest in a sinister light. In modern times, Aokigahara became known as one of the world's most infamous sites for suicides. Reports suggest this began gaining attention in the 1950s after the publication of Kuroi Jukai, Black Sea of Trees, a novel by Seicho Matsumoto in which two lovers end their lives in the forest. This seemed to resonate with a dark undercurrent in society, and the forest's reputation as a place to die began to grow. Visitors to Aokigahara often speak of its haunting silence. The dense canopy of trees blocks much of the sunlight, and the forest floor, made of volcanic rock, muffles sound. The air feels thick, and the usual rustling of leaves or chirping of birds is strangely absent in many areas. Compasses and GPS devices sometimes malfunction, possibly due to the iron-rich volcanic soil, adding to the sense of disorientation. Wanderers have occasionally stumbled upon remnants of human lives, abandoned tents, scattered belongings, and the ribbons or tape tied to trees that people use to mark their way in and out. These markers are often left by those uncertain about whether they will leave the forest alive, creating a chilling trail of indecision. The Japanese government has taken steps to address the forest's reputation. Signs are posted at the entrances urging visitors to reconsider their actions and offering phone numbers for suicide prevention hotlines. Local volunteers and officials routinely patrol the area, not only to provide help to those in distress, but also to recover the remains of those who have already made the fateful decision. Why Aokigahara? Why has this forest become a magnet for such despair? The answers lie in a combination of cultural, societal, and psychological factors. Japan's societal pressures are often cited as a root cause, with high expectations and stigmas surrounding mental health, making it difficult for many to seek help. The forest, with its historical and literary associations, offers a seemingly isolated and symbolic escape. The suicides, however, are only part of the forest's eerie reputation. Many visitors report a sense of being watched or feeling an inexplicable unease as they wander its paths. Some attribute this to the forest's unsettling quiet, while others delve into supernatural explanations. In Japanese folklore, the forest is said to be haunted by yurei, restless spirits who suffered violent or unnatural deaths. These spirits are believed to lure people deeper into the forest, ensuring they never leave. Among these legends is the story of a man named Taro, who is said to have entered the forest grieving the death of his family. According to local tales, he intended to take his own life, but was tormented by whispers and visions of his loved ones. By the time he was discovered by searchers, he had lost his sanity and spoke of being unable to escape, as if the forest itself held him captive. While likely fictional, such stories amplify the sense of dread surrounding Aokigahara. Despite its grim associations, Aokigahara has an undeniable beauty. The forest is lush and rich in biodiversity, with ancient trees, moss-covered roots, and lava caves formed by Mount Fuji's eruptions. Tourists flock to the forest for hiking, photography, and exploring its natural wonders. Some even claim that the forest's tranquility, when separated from its dark reputation, has a calming effect. In recent years, efforts have been made to shift the focus from Aokigahara's tragic side to its ecological and cultural significance. Guides now lead visitors on educational tours, highlighting the forest's unique flora and fauna while respecting its solemn history. However, the shadow of its reputation lingers, and the association with death is hard to erase. For those who walk its trails, Aokigahara presents a paradox. It is a place of stunning natural beauty, yet heavy with an unshakable air of sorrow. The quietness, the disorienting paths, and the forest's dark history weave together into an experience that feels otherworldly. For some, it is a place of solace. For others, it is a reminder of life's fragility and the struggles that many face in silence. The Sea of Trees stands as a haunting symbol of humanity's complex relationship with nature, death, and despair. It is a place where myths and reality intertwine, leaving those who visit with a profound sense of the unknown. A ship without souls. The Mary Celeste departed New York Harbor on November 7, 1872, on what seemed like an ordinary journey. A sturdy brigantine ship, she carried 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol intended for Italian wineries. Her captain, Benjamin Briggs, was an experienced seafarer with a reputation for being cautious and methodical. Accompanying him on this voyage were his wife Sarah and their 2-year-old daughter Sophia. The crew of 7 sailors had been carefully selected, ensuring only those with solid maritime experience were aboard. The ship was fully stocked with provisions, enough to last 6 months, and the weather was favorable. There were no reports of anything unusual as the Mary Celeste set off for Genoa, Italy. Captain Briggs even wrote a cheerful letter to his mother shortly before departure, expressing optimism about the trip. However, less than a month later, the ship would be discovered drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic Ocean, under circumstances that would mystify the world. On December 4, 1872, the Dei Gratia, a British brig commanded by Captain David Morehouse, spotted a vessel adrift near the Azores. From a distance, the ship seemed abandoned, but otherwise intact. As they drew closer, Morehouse recognized it as the Mary Celeste. This was no ordinary sighting for Morehouse. He was personally acquainted with Captain Briggs. The two had dined together in New York before their respective voyages, and Morehouse knew Briggs to be a skilled and reliable mariner. Concerned, Morehouse ordered a boarding party to investigate. The sight that greeted the men as they stepped onto the Mary Celeste was eerie and unnerving. The ship was completely deserted. The sails were damaged and partially set, flapping loosely in the wind. The ship's single lifeboat was missing, and the binnacle, a stand housing the compass, was overturned. But the ship itself was seaworthy. Below deck, the crew's belongings were untouched. The cargo hold still contained all 1,701 barrels of alcohol, and the ship's logbook was found in the captain's cabin, with its last entry dated November 25th, 9 days earlier. The entry noted nothing out of the ordinary, stating the ship was near the Azores and on course. Food and water supplies were abundant, and valuable items such as the captain's chronometer and the crew's personal effects remained in place. There were no signs of violence or struggle. The only indication of anything amiss was a slight amount of water in the bilge, the lowest part of the ship. But this was not uncommon and posed no immediate danger. The question loomed large. What had caused 10 people to abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel without a trace? The discovery of the Mary Celeste sparked a wave of speculation and theories. many of which have persisted for over a century. Some proposed natural causes while others veered into the supernatural. The truth remains elusive. One of the most plausible theories involves the ship's cargo of industrial alcohol. It was suggested that some of the barrels might have leaked, releasing toxic fumes into the ship's hold. The crew, fearing an imminent explosion, could have panicked and abandoned the ship in the lifeboat. However, this theory is not without problems. Industrial alcohol is not highly explosive under normal conditions, and if the crew had evacuated temporarily, they would have tethered the lifeboat to the ship with a line. No such line was found, and the lifeboat and its occupants vanished completely. Another theory points to weather-related phenomena. Waterspouts, essentially tornadoes at sea, could have caused chaos aboard the ship. A sudden violent storm might have given the impression that the ship was in danger of capsizing, prompting an evacuation. However, the ship itself bore no signs of such a storm, and weather conditions recorded at the time were relatively mild. Piracy is another possibility. The 19th century was not without its share of pirate activity, and the open Atlantic was a vast and lawless expanse. Yet this theory too fails to hold water. Pirates would have likely looted the ship for valuables or cargo, and the Mary Celeste was found with its cargo and valuable items untouched. There is also the theory of mutiny. Could the crew have risen against Captain Briggs? Perhaps they killed him and his family, only to meet their own grim fate later. This idea, while dramatic, is unsupported by evidence. The lack of violence or signs of a struggle aboard the ship makes it unlikely. Some theorists have ventured into more fantastical explanations. The Bermuda Triangle, though not geographically relevant in this case, has often been invoked in discussions of maritime mysteries. Tales of sea monsters, alien abductions, and ghostly apparitions have captured the public imagination, but offer little in the way of plausible answers. A more technical theory emerged during the 20th century. In 2006, scientists and historians suggested that the alcohol barrels themselves might hold the key to the mystery. Testing showed that a sudden explosion caused by alcohol vapor could occur without leaving burn marks or scorch damage. It's possible that a vapor buildup in the hold ignited, creating a frightening flash fire. If the crew saw flames or felt an explosion, they may have believed the ship was about to be engulfed. This could explain why they abandoned it so hastily, though it doesn't clarify why the lifeboat was never found. Another, less dramatic hypothesis involves a mechanical issue. A malfunctioning pump could have led the crew to believe the ship was taking on water faster than it was. The Mary Celeste had been recently overhauled, and one of its pumps was dismantled when the ship was found. If Briggs believed the vessel was in imminent danger of sinking, he might have ordered an evacuation, only to have the crew meet misfortune at sea in the lifeboat. The Mary Celeste was towed to Gibraltar, where a formal investigation began. The authorities, puzzled and suspicious, examined the ship thoroughly. They found no evidence of foul play or criminal activity. The ship was eventually released to its owners, who sold it at a significant loss. The Mary Celeste changed hands multiple times before being deliberately wrecked off the coast of Haiti in 1885 as part of an insurance scam. Even in death, the ship's reputation as a cursed vessel endured. The Mary Celeste has become a symbol of maritime mystery, inspiring countless books, articles, and fictional adaptations. It remains one of the ocean's most enduring enigmas. Was it human error, natural disaster, or something stranger? We may never know. What lingers most is the haunting image of the ship adrift, her decks empty, her cabin silent. The open sea holds many secrets, but few are as chilling as the fate of the Mary Celeste. Whatever happened, it left no survivors to tell the tale, only a ghost ship to spark endless questions and imaginations. The Border Crosser. The story of the man from Torred begins on a seemingly ordinary day in July 1954, at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. Among the usual hustle and bustle of arriving passengers, one man stood out, not for his appearance, which was unremarkable, but for the peculiar and baffling series of events that would follow his arrival. This man, dressed in a business suit and carrying a briefcase, was about to become the center of one of the most enduring urban legends of the 20th century. When the man handed over his passport at customs, the officers noticed something odd. His passport, though legitimate-looking and stamped with visas suggesting he had traveled extensively, listed his country of origin as Torrid. Confused, the customs officials began questioning him. The man insisted that Torrid was a real country and that it was located between France and Spain. But no such country existed. Officials showed him a map, pointing out that the area he referred to was the tiny Principality of Andorra. The man seemed genuinely perplexed. He argued that Andorra didn't exist in his world and that Torrid had stood there for centuries. His confusion appeared sincere, and he maintained that this was all some bizarre misunderstanding. To complicate matters further, the man carried documentation that seemed impossible to fake. His passport bore official stamps from other countries, corroborating his claim of frequent international travel. He also had a driver's license issued by Torrid, as well as business documents from a company that neither the Japanese authorities nor anyone else could verify as real. Even stranger, the man had reservations at a Tokyo hotel, and his wallet contained currency from several recognizable countries, but nothing tied to Torrid. Despite the man's increasingly agitated insistence on the existence of his homeland, customs officers were at a loss. They contacted the company he claimed to work for, but the company had no record of him or of any dealings with Torrid. They also called the hotel where he said he had a reservation, only to find no booking under his name. It was as if this man existed in a strange liminal space, real and unreal at the same time. Authorities decided to detain him while they investigated further. The man was taken to a secure room at the airport with guards stationed outside to ensure he couldn't leave. His possessions, including his passport and other documents, were locked away for examination. The plan was to sort everything out the following morning. When officials went to check on him the next day, the man was gone. The room was locked, the guards swore they had seen and heard nothing, yet he had vanished. To add to the mystery, all of his belongings, which had been securely stored, were also missing. It was as if the man from Torrid had simply evaporated into thin air. Over the years, theories have abounded regarding the identity and origin of the man from Torrid. One explanation is that the story is a fabrication, an urban legend born from the imaginative retelling of an unusual travel anecdote. Without concrete evidence, skeptics argue it's impossible to prove the event ever occurred. Yet the persistence of the story in popular culture suggests it strikes a chord with something deeper in the human psyche. Another theory posits that the man from Torrid was a time traveler or an interdimensional wanderer. According to this interpretation, he may have accidentally crossed over into our reality from a parallel universe, one where Torrid does exist. His disappearance then could be explained as a return to his own dimension, or perhaps an unintended shift into yet another alternate world. Some have suggested more mundane explanations. Could it have been a case of mistaken identity? Perhaps the man was suffering from a mental illness that caused him to misremember or fabricate his origins. Or maybe the entire incident was the result of a bureaucratic mix-up with a fictionalized version of events spreading through word of mouth until it became legend. Regardless of the truth, the tale of the man from Torrid raises fascinating questions about the nature of reality, identity, and our understanding of the world. How much of what we know is shaped by the limits of our perception? Could there be parallel worlds brushing up against our own, their boundaries occasionally and inexplicably breached? The man's story has since become a staple of conspiracy theories, paranormal discussions, and speculative fiction. It taps into the deep-seated human fear and thrill of the unknown. What if there really are people, places, and possibilities that exist just beyond our comprehension? The mystery of the man from Torrid endures not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. He was an enigma, a man who didn't fit neatly into the confines of our world, who left more questions than answers. Whether a hoax, a misunderstanding, or a brush with something extraordinary, his story continues to captivate and confound, leaving us to wonder about the boundaries of reality and the mysteries that may yet lie beyond them. The Devil's Footprints. The story of the Devil's Footprints is one of the strangest mysteries in history, shrouded in eerie details and unanswered questions. It began on a cold February morning in 1855 in Devon, England, after an unusually heavy snowfall blanketed the area. Residents awoke to find something bizarre and inexplicable, a trail of hoof-like footprints that stretched across the landscape, cutting through fields, gardens, and even rooftops. The strange marks seemed to go on for miles, and they were unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The footprints themselves were peculiar. They were small, measuring about 4 inches long and 3 inches wide, and resembled cloven hooves. What made them unsettling, however, was their pattern. The tracks appeared in a single-file line as though made by a bipedal creature, walking one foot directly in front of the other. Even more mysterious was how the tracks seemed to defy logic. They passed over snow-covered rooftops, through walls, and across rivers without breaking their stride. In some places, the prints stopped abruptly, only to resume on the other side of an obstacle, as if the creature had simply leapt or vanished into thin air. The news spread quickly, and soon the entire region was abuzz with speculation. Local clergymen, townsfolk, and even members of the press gathered to examine the tracks, but no one could determine their origin. Theories ranged from the mundane to the supernatural. Some believed the tracks were made by a stray donkey or escaped kangaroo, though no animals matching the description were reported missing. Others suggested a prankster might have created the marks to scare the superstitious villagers, but replicating such precise and extensive tracks would have been an extraordinary feat. Then there were the more ominous explanations. Many locals believed the footprints were the work of the devil himself. In a deeply religious Victorian society, the idea that Satan had come to Devon to wander the snowy countryside took hold with alarming ease. Stories spread that the devil was searching for sinners, leaving his mark as a warning to the pious. Some even claimed that the tracks led directly to the doorsteps of certain villagers, adding a sinister personal element to the mystery. One of the most puzzling aspects of the event was the sheer scope of the tracks. They reportedly stretched for over 40 miles, winding through multiple towns and villages. The effort required to create such an extensive hoax, especially during a freezing winter night, seemed nearly impossible. Yet there was no definitive proof of an animal or human culprit, leaving the origin of the tracks a perplexing enigma. In the days that followed, scientists and skeptics tried to provide rational explanations. Some speculated that the tracks were the result of a peculiar weather phenomenon. One idea was that melting snow and freezing winds could have reshaped the footprints of a common animal, such as a fox or badger, into the strange hoof-like shapes. Others suggested that balloons dragging ropes could have caused the marks as they were blown across the snow. But none of these theories fully accounted for the unusual pattern or the seemingly impossible locations the tracks had traversed. The devil's footprints became a sensation, not just in Devon, but across England and beyond. Newspapers carried the story, and the mystery captured the imaginations of people far and wide. It also left a lasting impression on the folklore of the region. Even today, the story is told as a chilling reminder of the unexplained. Modern researchers have revisited the case, offering new theories. Some have pointed to the possibility of a combination of natural and human factors. Perhaps an animal did create the original tracks, and human embellishment or overinterpretation turned them into something far more mysterious. Others entertain the idea of mass hysteria, suggesting that the strange marks might have been exaggerated by frightened villagers, eager to find meaning in an otherwise mundane occurrence. Yet the mystery remains unsolved. The tracks have never been definitively explained, and no similar phenomenon has occurred on such a scale since. They exist now as part of the folklore of Devon, a peculiar chapter in history that resists rational explanation. Whether a hoax, a natural anomaly, or something far stranger, the devil's footprints remind us of the enduring power of the unknown. For those who live in Devon, the story lingers as a piece of local legend. On snowy nights, when the landscape looks eerily similar to that fateful February morning, it's not uncommon to hear whispered tales of hoof-like prints reappearing, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. The Dyatlov Mystery. The story of the Dyatlov Pass incident is one of the most chilling and enduring mysteries in modern history. It begins in late January 1959, when a group of 9 experienced hikers, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, set out on an expedition into the snowy Ural Mountains in Soviet Russia. Their goal was to reach Otorten, a remote mountain whose name ominously translates to "don't go there" in the local Mansi language. But none of them would return alive, and the circumstances of their deaths would perplex investigators and fuel speculation for decades. The group, composed of university students and graduates, was well prepared for the journey. They carried provisions, a detailed route plan, and the skills necessary to handle the harsh conditions. On January 31st, they arrived at a site near their destination, setting up camp on the slopes of Kolatsyakal, a name that translates to "dead mountain." The hikers planned to resume their trek the next day, but a snowstorm and poor visibility forced them to stay put. That decision would seal their fate. When the group failed to return by their scheduled date in early February, a search party was dispatched. Weeks later, on February 26th, rescuers discovered their campsite. But what they found defied explanation. The hikers' tent had been slashed open from the inside, and their belongings were left behind as if they had fled in a panic. The footprints of the group, barefoot or in socks, led away from the tent and into the woods, but after about 500 meters, the tracks vanished under fresh snow. The first bodies were found at the edge of a nearby forest, near the remains of a fire. 2 men, stripped down to their underwear, lay frozen in the snow. It appeared they had tried to build a fire to survive the bitter cold. 3 more bodies, including Dyatlov's, were discovered between the tent and the forest, as if they had been trying to return to camp. Their positions suggested they had died of hypothermia. It wasn't until 2 months later that the remaining 4 hikers were found deeper in a ravine, buried under several feet of snow. These bodies presented far stranger injuries. 1 woman was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lips. 2 others had severe chest fractures, likened by experts to the force of a car crash, but with no external wounds to explain the damage. A 4th had a fractured skull. Adding to the mystery, traces of radiation were found on some of their clothing. The official Soviet investigation concluded that the hikers died of a compelling natural force, but the vague explanation only deepened the intrigue. No clear cause could account for the group's panicked flight, the strange injuries, and the traces of radiation. The area was declared off-limits for years, further fueling speculation. Over time, numerous theories have emerged to explain the Dyatlov Pass incident. One of the earliest suggestions was an avalanche. According to this theory, the hikers, fearing a sudden avalanche, cut their way out of the tent and fled. However, skeptics argue that the slope wasn't steep enough for an avalanche, and the tent and campsite showed no clear signs of being buried. Another theory involves infrasound, a phenomenon where certain wind patterns can produce low-frequency sound waves that induce panic and disorientation. This could explain why the group fled in confusion, but it doesn't account for their physical injuries. Some suggest the involvement of military testing. The area was known for secret weapons experiments, including parachute mines that could have exploded above the ground, causing traumatic injuries without external wounds. The radiation on their clothing has also been linked to this theory, though no definitive evidence of a military cover-up has been found. Then there are the more outlandish explanations: UFOs, Yetis, or even supernatural forces. Lights in the sky were reportedly seen in the region around the time of the incident, leading some to speculate about extraterrestrial involvement. Others believe the hikers encountered a cryptid or something equally inexplicable in the forest. In recent years, more scientific investigations have revisited the case. A 2021 study suggested that a rare type of delayed avalanche, caused by a slab of snow dislodging under pressure, could explain both the group's panic and the chest and skull injuries. The researchers used modern simulations to show how snowpack conditions at the time might have contributed to such an event. While this theory has gained traction, it doesn't fully address all aspects of the mystery, such as the missing body parts or the radiation. The Dyatlov Pass incident continues to captivate the imagination because it combines elements of human tragedy, unexplained phenomena, and the unforgiving wilderness. Each piece of evidence raises more questions than it answers, leaving a haunting gap where certainty should be. Today, the pass where the tragedy occurred bears Dyatlov's name, serving as a stark reminder of the mystery and the lives lost. For some, it's a cautionary tale about the power of nature. For others, it's a riddle that defies the boundaries of science and logic. Whatever the truth may be, the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident endures as one of the most chilling and perplexing unsolved mysteries of the modern era. The Cave That Calls. The story of the M Cave is a modern mystery that continues to baffle and intrigue those who hear it. It began in 2014 when Kenny Veach, a 47-year-old experienced hiker and adventurer, shared his story on YouTube. Known for his love of exploring the vast and desolate Mojave Desert, Kenny described himself as someone who sought out challenging and remote terrain. However, it was one particular comment he made that caught people's attention and set the stage for a mystery that remains unsolved. Kenny wrote about discovering a strange M-shaped cave during one of his hikes near Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. He described the cave as unique and unsettling, stating that as he approached its entrance, he felt an intense vibration in his body that grew stronger the closer he got. The sensation was so overwhelming that he had to turn back. Kenny claimed he had never felt anything like it before, and the memory of the cave stayed with him. Intrigued by his own account and by the interest it sparked online, Kenny decided to return to the desert and document his search for the mysterious cave. He posted a video titled, "Son of an Area 51 Technician," in which he explored the rugged terrain, searching for the M Cave. Although the video showed Kenny's adventurous spirit and the beauty of the harsh desert, he was unable to locate the cave during that trip. His failure to find the cave only fueled speculation and debate among viewers. Some believed his story was genuine and wondered if the cave might be connected to nearby Area 51, a site long associated with secret military experiments and UFO theories. Others dismissed it as a hoax or a figment of his imagination, questioning whether such a cave even existed. Kenny was undeterred. Encouraged by the growing interest and his own curiosity, he announced that he would embark on another hike to locate the M Cave, this time alone. Despite warnings from friends, family, and commenters about the dangers of solo hiking in such a remote and unforgiving area, Kenny set off in November 2014. That would be the last anyone heard from him. When Kenny failed to return, his girlfriend alerted authorities, and a search and rescue operation was launched. Teams scoured the area where Kenny had been hiking, focusing on landmarks mentioned in his videos and comments. They found his car parked at the trailhead near an abandoned mine shaft, but no sign of Kenny. Searchers descended into the mine shaft, suspecting he might have fallen, but they found nothing. It was as if he had vanished into the desert without a trace. The disappearance only deepened the mystery. Online theories about what happened to Kenny Veach multiplied. Some suggested he might have succumbed to the harsh conditions of the Mojave Desert. Extreme heat during the day, freezing temperatures at night, and a lack of water making survival incredibly difficult. Others speculated he may have had an accident, falling into an unmarked crevice or pit. Then there were the more extraordinary theories. Many pointed to the proximity of Nellis Air Force Base and Area 51, proposing that the M Cave could have been an entrance to a secret military installation or even a site connected to extraterrestrial activity. According to these theories, Kenny might have stumbled onto something he wasn't meant to see, leading to his disappearance. Kenny's own personal struggles added another layer to the story. According to his girlfriend, he had battled depression, and some suggested that his final hike might have been a deliberate act of seeking solitude in the wilderness. However, those who knew Kenny described him as an experienced hiker with a love for adventure, not someone who would take unnecessary risks lightly. The idea that he might have gotten lost or made a fatal mistake didn't sit well with many who followed his story. The M Cave itself became a point of fascination. Amateur sleuths and adventurers have tried to locate it, combing through Kenny's video and his descriptions for clues. Some claim to have found caves in the area that might match his account, but none have reported experiencing the strange vibrations he described. Others remain skeptical, questioning whether the M Cave was real or simply a story Kenny told to spark intrigue. Over the years, the mystery of Kenny Veach and the M Cave has taken on a life of its own, blending elements of folklore, conspiracy, and human tragedy. For some, it's a tale of caution, a reminder of the dangers of venturing into the wilderness alone. For others, it's a symbol of the unknown, a mystery that tantalizes the imagination and defies resolution. To this day, Kenny's fate and the true nature of the M Cave remain unknown. His story is a modern-day enigma, one that lingers in the minds of those drawn to the allure of the unexplained. Whether Kenny discovered something extraordinary or simply lost himself in the vastness of the desert, his disappearance leaves a haunting question. What really happened to Kenny Veach, and will we ever find the M Cave? Twins through time. The story of the Pollock twins is one of the most intriguing and controversial cases often cited in discussions of reincarnation. It begins in Hexham, England, in the early 1950s, with the tragic death of two young sisters and the subsequent birth of twins whose lives seemed eerily linked to their deceased siblings. In May 1957, Joanna Pollock, aged 11, and her younger sister Jacqueline, aged 6, were walking to church with a family friend when they were struck and killed by a car. The driver, a local woman under the influence of drugs and suffering from mental distress, had intentionally driven onto the sidewalk. The loss devastated their parents, John and Florence Pollock, who were deeply religious but differed in their beliefs. While Florence was a devout Catholic, John believed in reincarnation, a concept that would later become central to the mystery surrounding the family. John was convinced that his daughters would be reborn into the family. Despite Florence's skepticism, John maintained his belief, even claiming to have experienced visions that reassured him his daughters would return. About a year later, Florence became pregnant again. To their surprise, she gave birth to identical twin girls, Jillian and Jennifer, on October 4, 1958. From the beginning, the twins displayed unusual characteristics that fueled speculation about reincarnation. Jennifer, the younger twin, had two birthmarks that were identical to marks Jacqueline had during her lifetime. One was a small birthmark on her waist, and the other was a distinctive scar-like mark on her forehead that resembled a wound Jacqueline had sustained in a fall. Jillian, on the other hand, bore no such marks, further adding to the peculiarity. As the twins grew older, their behavior began to raise more questions. Around the age of 3, Jillian and Jennifer started asking for toys that had belonged to Joanna and Jacqueline, even though they had never seen these items before. They accurately described details of the deceased sisters' lives, including the layout of their former school and specific landmarks in Hexham, despite the family having moved away after the accident. Perhaps most unsettling were their reactions when visiting Hexham for the first time since their birth. The twins recognized locations associated with their late sisters, such as the school and the church. They even expressed familiarity with the playground where Joanna and Jacqueline used to play. These episodes were deeply unsettling for Florence, who struggled to reconcile her faith with the strange behavior of her children. John, on the other hand, saw these events as confirmation of his belief in reincarnation. He noted that Jillian seemed to embody Joanna's more mature and nurturing personality, while Jennifer displayed traits similar to Jacqueline's, such as her attachment to her older sister. The twins' play often mirrored scenarios from Joanna and Jacqueline's lives, and they occasionally referred to incidents that had occurred before their birth. One chilling detail involved their reactions to cars. The twins exhibited an intense fear of cars during their early years and would huddle together in panic whenever one approached. On one occasion, they spoke of the accident that killed their sisters, describing details they could not have known. This fear seemed to fade around the age of 5, when their memories of their past lives also began to diminish. The case of the Pollock twins eventually attracted the attention of Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist and prominent researcher in the field of reincarnation. Dr. Stevenson documented their story as part of his studies on children who claimed to remember past lives. He considered the Pollock twins one of his strongest cases due to the physical birthmarks, behavioral similarities, and the detailed knowledge they exhibited about their deceased sisters. Skeptics, however, have offered alternative explanations. Some argue that the twins' behavior could be attributed to parental influence, suggesting that John and Florence may have unconsciously shaped their daughter's memories and actions through stories and subtle cues. Others point to the human tendency to find patterns and meaning in coincidences, especially in the wake of grief. The case remains controversial with no definitive answers. Those who believe in reincarnation see the Pollock twins as compelling evidence of life after death, while skeptics view the story as a mix of coincidence, suggestion, and the natural workings of the human mind. Today, the story of the Pollock twins endures as a fascinating mystery, one that raises profound questions about the nature of identity, memory, and what happens after we die. Whether viewed as a spiritual phenomenon or a psychological puzzle, it remains an enigmatic tale that continues to captivate and perplex. Children of the Fields. The story of the Green Children of Woolpit is one of the most unusual and enduring mysteries of medieval England, blending folklore, history, and speculation into a tale that has fascinated people for centuries. It takes place in the small village of Woolpit in Suffolk, during the 12th century, a time when England was steeped in superstition, and the unexplained often blurred the lines between reality and myth. The story begins with the villagers working in the fields near Woolpit, named for its wolf pits used to trap wolves. One day, they discovered two strange children, a boy and a girl, emerging from one of the pits. The children appeared normal in most respects, but their skin was a startling shade of green. They were dressed in unfamiliar, oddly textured clothing, and their speech was incomprehensible, unlike any language the villagers had heard before. The children were taken to the village where they were housed and cared for. Despite the villagers' kindness, the children initially refused all food and drink, appearing distressed and bewildered by their surroundings. Eventually, they found sustenance in raw beans, which they eagerly ate when shown how to open the pods. Over time, their diet expanded to include other foods, and their health began to improve. As the children acclimated to their new life, the villagers tried to learn more about their origins. According to later accounts, the children eventually learned to speak English and shared a story that only deepened the mystery. They claimed to come from a place called St. Martin's Land, a world where everything was cloaked in perpetual twilight and the sun never shone. The land was described as a strange, green-hued realm separated from the surface world by a vast river. The children explained that they were tending their father's livestock when they heard a loud noise like the ringing of bells, and suddenly found themselves in the unfamiliar landscape of Woolpit. How they arrived in the village or what the sound they heard might have been was left unexplained, adding an otherworldly element to the tale. As time passed, the children adapted to their new environment, but tragedy struck when the boy fell ill and died, leaving the girl alone to navigate her new life. The girl continued to integrate into the village, losing the green hue of her skin over time, and reportedly becoming healthy and robust. She was eventually baptized and took the name Agnes. According to some accounts, she went on to marry and lived a relatively ordinary life. Despite her integration into the community, Agnes never deviated from her story about St. Martin's Land, and her strange origins remained an enigma. The lack of further details about her later life only fueled speculation about who or what she and her brother might have been. Over the centuries, many theories have been proposed to explain the story of the Green Children of Woolpit. One interpretation views the tale as a distorted account of a real event. Some suggest the children were Flemish immigrants who had fled a nearby conflict, such as the persecution of Flemish settlers during the reign of King Henry II. The green hue of their skin might have been due to malnutrition, specifically a condition called chlorosis, which causes a greenish tint to the skin. Others take a more imaginative approach, speculating that the children were from a subterranean world or even extraterrestrial visitors. The description of St. Martin's Land as a twilight realm, their peculiar language, and their sudden appearance all lend themselves to theories of parallel dimensions or alien origins. A more metaphorical interpretation suggests the story is an allegory, perhaps reflecting religious or moral themes of the time. The green skin, strange language, and eventual assimilation could symbolize the journey of outsiders or non-believers being integrated into Christian society. Regardless of its origins, the story of the Green Children has endured as part of English folklore, passed down through generations and inspiring countless retellings. The blend of mystery and possibility continues to captivate modern audiences, leaving us to wonder whether the tale is a case of misunderstood history, an elaborate parable, or something more extraordinary. To this day, the story of the Green Children of Woolpit remains an unsolved mystery, a testament to the enduring allure of the strange and the unexplained. The Enfield Encounter. The story of the Enfield monster begins in the quiet town of Enfield, Illinois, in April 1973. What unfolded there remains one of the strangest cryptid sightings in American folklore, blending fear, mystery, and the unknown into a case that defies explanation. Though its origins are rooted in the personal accounts of local residents, the story has since become a favorite topic of cryptozoologists and paranormal enthusiasts. It all started on the evening of April 25, 1973, when Henry McDaniel, a resident of Enfield, was relaxing at home. Around 9:30 p.m., his children rushed inside, panicked, and claiming they had seen a creature trying to claw its way into the house. Initially skeptical, McDaniel decided to investigate. When he opened the door, he was met with a sight so bizarre that it would haunt him for the rest of his life. Standing on his front lawn was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was short, around 4 to 5 feet tall, with gray, leathery skin and large, glowing red eyes. The creature had 3 legs, short arms with claws, and an overall appearance that McDaniel could only describe as monstrous. It moved in a jerky, almost mechanical manner, and when McDaniel shone a flashlight on it, the creature let out a hiss and bounded away with remarkable speed, covering up to 50 feet in a single leap. Shaken, McDaniel immediately contacted local authorities, reporting what he had seen. He described the creature in vivid detail, and while the police were skeptical, they noted his genuine fear and confusion. Officers who later investigated the scene found unusual scratch marks on the house and prints in the dirt. The footprints were peculiar, 3-toed, deep, and much larger than those of any known animal in the area. The next evening, McDaniel saw the creature again, this time near some railroad tracks close to his home. It appeared to be wandering aimlessly before disappearing into the woods. By now, news of the sightings had spread throughout Enfield, and curious locals as well as reporters began flocking to the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious monster. Not everyone believed McDaniel's story, though his account wasn't the only one. Earlier on the same night, a local boy named Greg Garrett reported encountering a strange creature while playing in his yard. Garrett described the creature as attacking him, tearing his shoes with its claws before bounding away. Like McDaniel, Garrett insisted the creature moved in an unnatural manner, leaping rather than running. The excitement and fear surrounding the sightings drew the attention of cryptid hunters and enthusiasts, some of whom camped out near McDaniel's property. Among them were 2 men who claimed to have seen something similar to the creature during their own investigation, though their account lacked the detail and credibility of McDaniel's testimony. As the story gained traction, theories about the Enfield monster began to emerge. Some speculated that it was a misidentified animal, such as a kangaroo, though McDaniel vehemently rejected this explanation, stating that what he saw was far too strange to be any normal creature. Others suggested it might have been a hoax, pointing to the growing media attention and the involvement of thrill-seekers who could have fabricated sightings to add to the hysteria. More outlandish theories included the possibility of the creature being extraterrestrial, citing its glowing red eyes, unnatural movements, and the timing of its appearance. Some even speculated that it could be a cryptid, an undiscovered species native to the area, perhaps lurking in the dense woods and secluded countryside around Enfield. Despite the flurry of attention, the sightings eventually stopped, and no further evidence of the creature was ever found. Critics dismissed the story as mass hysteria fueled by the media, while believers argued that the lack of evidence only deepened the mystery. McDaniel, for his part, remained adamant about what he saw, standing by his story until his death. The legacy of the Enfield monster lives on in cryptozoological lore as one of the more peculiar cases of supposed cryptid encounters. Whether it was a real creature, a figment of overactive imaginations, or a deliberate hoax, it captured the fears and imaginations of those who encountered the unknown, leaving behind a tale that continues to fascinate and perplex. Eyes of the Unknown. The story of the Black-Eyed Kids is a chilling modern urban legend, first surfacing in the late 1990s and spreading rapidly across forums, blogs, and paranormal communities. Though accounts vary, the core elements remain consistent. These mysterious children with their pale skin and completely black eyes appear unexpectedly, usually asking for help or entry into a home or car. Their requests seem ordinary at first, but they are accompanied by an overwhelming sense of dread. The phenomenon is believed to have started with a story by journalist Brian Bethel in 1996. Bethel, a reporter in Abilene, Texas, claimed he was sitting in his car in a dimly lit parking lot writing a check when two boys aged 9 to 12 approached him. They were wearing hooded sweatshirts, and their manner was polite but unsettling. The boys asked for a ride home, saying they had forgotten their money and wanted to see a movie playing at the nearby theater. At first, their request seemed innocent, but Bethel began to feel an inexplicable fear. He noticed that the boys' language was oddly formal and their behavior unnervingly insistent. As he hesitated, one of the boys reassured him, saying, "It won't take long, we're just kids." Yet something about their tone felt off, mechanical, as if rehearsed. Then Bethel saw their eyes, pitch black with no whites or irises. Overwhelmed by terror, he fumbled to start his car and sped away. He later described the encounter as deeply unnatural, the fear so primal it bypassed rational thought. This account became the first widely shared report of the Black-Eyed Kids. Since Bethel's story, reports of similar encounters have surfaced worldwide. The Black-Eyed Kids are often described as children or teenagers, usually in pairs who knock on doors, tap on car windows, or appear in isolated locations. They ask for help, a phone call, a ride, or entry into a home, but always require an invitation to proceed. Those who encounter them report a suffocating sense of fear and an instinctive urge to flee. In many cases, the children seem emotionless, speaking in an unsettling monotone or using strange, outdated phrases. Witnesses often note that their clothing appears slightly out of place, as if from another era, and that their skin is unnaturally pale or sickly. Most chilling of all are their completely black eyes, devoid of whites or irises, which seem to drain warmth and humanity from their appearance. Theories about the Black-Eyed Kids range from rational explanations to the paranormal. Skeptics suggest they are a modern myth, born from the internet and amplified by collective imagination. The eerie similarities in accounts might reflect a shared cultural fear of strangers, of children behaving unnaturally, or of the unknown. Others propose psychological explanations such as sleep paralysis or hallucinations, which could account for the feeling of overwhelming fear and the vivid descriptions of the encounters. For believers, the Black-Eyed Kids are something far more sinister. Some argue they are extraterrestrials or hybrids, sent to observe or interact with humans. Others link them to demons or malevolent spirits, pointing to their need for an invitation as a common trait in folklore about dark entities. Their resemblance to traditional vampire myths, the pale skin, the need for permission to enter, has also drawn comparisons to ancient fears of supernatural predators. A particularly chilling aspect of BK encounters is the idea that granting them entry leads to disastrous consequences. Though no widely publicized case confirms this, some anecdotal accounts describe mysterious illnesses, bad luck, or even death following such encounters. In one story, a man claimed to have let two black-eyed kids into his home, only for his pets to act violently and his wife to develop a chronic illness shortly after. The link between these events and the children is purely speculative, but adds to the aura of danger surrounding the legend. Unlike many urban legends, the Black-Eyed Kids lack a clear origin in folklore, making their sudden emergence in the late 20th century all the more mysterious. They exist at the intersection of primal fears, darkness, strange children, and the uncanny, tapping into universal anxieties. Whether they are figments of overactive imaginations, psychological phenomena, or something truly paranormal, the stories persist, haunting those who read or share them. The Black-Eyed Kids remain a potent modern mystery, their unnerving encounters striking a chord in an age when fear and fascination with the unknown are as alive as ever. Whether a product of the internet age or a darker truth, they continue to loom in the shadows, knocking on doors, waiting for an invitation. And so as the night carries on and these strange tales fade into the quiet, I want you to take a moment to let go of any lingering thoughts. The mysteries we explored tonight, as unsettling as they may be, are just stories. Stories that have been with us for years, drifting in the shadows of the unknown. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Sweet dreams, and remember, sometimes the most mysterious things in life are the ones we can't quite explain. And that's okay.